Hello, all, and welcome to the Community Talk with Gurtej and Rajdeep, my co host. And today we have the privilege of having Brian as our guest. Welcome, Brian.
Thank you for having me. Good evening.
So, Brian is a professional educator, 23 years of experience in education field in different profiles. He was a principal, director of educational services, interim superintendent, director of education services. Then now he's running for county superintendent of schools of San Joaquin County. So we'll learn from Brian. So, what were the motivations around why he's running and what kinds of positive changes he wants to bring? But before that, I'll request Brian because majority of our audience may not be aware what is the role and responsibility of a school district and what this title county superintendent of school district of San Joaquin County means and how it can make a difference in every citizen's life.
It's a great question, and it's a long answer, so I'll try to simplify it for you. There are 14 public school districts in San Joaquin County. So San Joaquin, this position has oversight, if you will, of those 14 districts. That include like Tracy, Manteca, Escalon, and there's a lot of particulars. There's budget oversight because the County Office of Education has oversight and signs off on the budget. There are charter school oversight, career education, court, community schools. But if you really get down to it, this position is the lead educator in the entire county, the model educator that is setting the tone for what education should look like, providing the models, the professional development, the capacity to push education forward in every district, not just at the county office. So this position is very important to really push and innovate education where we've wanted it to go for years, but it's never gotten there just yet. So it's an opportunity to support school districts like a Stockton or a Tracy or a Manteca and provide them what they need, but also have the accountability if they are not. So it's the umbrella, if you will, of the entire county's education, both public and private.
Right, Brian, as you mentioned, stressed about the innovation part. So you were very much involved in innovation and AVID program. So can you share something with our audience so that they will be a little bit more aware from the perspective of innovation, what things can be done with
Sure.
your leadership?
Yeah, it's and this is an opportunity. COVID has taught us one thing. If there's one positive out of COVID, is that we have to do education differently in order to reach all students, not just a one size fits all mentality. So when I was the director of innovation, we took the 5 lowest performing schools in South Stockton, and for example, we deployed AmeriCorps. We had 100 volunteers that did an intense focus on early literacy because that was the biggest data concern that we had is kids not reading by third grade. So we deployed artificial intelligence support for early literacy. We deployed live versions, and we did it differently, one-on-one. We found tutors of color to match them with kids of color so they can see themselves in success and have role models that look like them. And shockingly enough, the data took off because we were doing things differently. It's not desk in a row. I'm going to talk to you for an hour, get it or don't. We needed to break down education, provide the kids exactly what they needed based on where they're at and give it to them. And once we targeted and we were strategic with that, we took a system that is typically underserved in South Stockton, high poverty, typically the underserved kids of color, and we were able to move their data. When I was principal at Edison High School, same thing. We're the only district, or excuse me, the only school in San Joaquin County to have an AVID National Demonstration High School. The only one. There's only one in all of the county, and it's at our school. Typically getting, and it's a college preparatory program, getting typically 3.0 kids and below, kids of color, kids that are disadvantaged to college. So if you do it with an intense focus and you're strategic and not just simply talk about it, because in education, a lot of times we just talk about it and we talk about it and nothing changes. And I'll give you another example. Ethnic studies started at my high school. And now it's at every single high school in Stockton because kids have to know where they come from. They have to know their history. They have to be able to see themselves in the learning in order to hook them in and really dig deep into their learning so they can be successful. That's the kind of innovation I'm talking about. And I'm not talking about it because we've actually done it. Actions speak louder than words. And there's a lot of action that we have done as a team.
That's great, Brian, and that's wonderful what you just mentioned. And from here, actually wanted to go back to the previous briefing that we did about this office, about the seat that you're running. You mentioned there's 14 school districts. I want to just stress on that. We're talking about 14 school districts. We're not talking about 14 schools.
Correct.
So if you're breaking that down into 14 school districts, how many schools are we talking about here?
Oh, we're talking several hundred. When I was in with the superintendent of Stockton Unified, I had 58 schools, and we're the biggest in the county. So,
Okay.
I mean, there are some schools like Escalon that are more rural that have a single high school, a single middle school, that type of thing. They're a lot smaller. You have larger districts like Lodi, Tracy, Stockton that are a lot bigger, the more urban. But I was superintendent at the largest school, but it encompasses quite a bit. And I have a good background where I grew up in Escalon. I grew up in a rural. I've served in Stockton Unified for 23 years. I was actually born in Tracy, grew up in Manteca, then Escalon. So I got perspective in the county from every angle. But it is one of the bigger counties in the state. There's a lot going on as far as education and this position. It's vast, but it's so incredibly important because there's no greater equalizer than education. And if we don't push education forward, we get stuck. And you've seen this county get stuck a little bit because we've been doing the same things for so long in education. We have to eventually change and innovate.
Okay, great. Just for the more from the audience perspective, because Brian, what majority of the time happens, people, they are affiliated with some sort of a work or some sort of a friend circle. They would know about these positions that, hey, one, this is the elected position. Second, what's the role of it? Mm-hmm. So basically, if we are putting in a simple terms from the audience, that any of the school administration is reporting to this office or this person who would be sitting in the seat. So any decision, any policies that are getting in the pipeline to make those decisions that's coming down to the school, it's going to be from this position. So it's a very powerful. And on top of that, you said this is probably one of the biggest county office in the entire California state. So that means a lot. It's a very, very important position. Correct. So just for the audience, so it's a huge deal.
It's a huge deal. I mean, and we're talking about the education and lives of kids, right? So it's so important. And how can we really push education forward for everybody? That's what this position is really about. How do I influence it? Let's imagine that you're from Manteca, you're from Tracy. How do I influence education in your systems to reach all kids and to do better, right? That's an important position. I can't think of, I mean, not to minimize any other elected position, but if I do my job correctly and I do my job right, everybody benefits. Everybody.
Right. No, just to quantify this a little bit, like Brian was in a leadership role as an interim superintendent for Stockton Unified School District, where approximately 600 million was the budget and 5,000 plus staff members were kind of impacted by all the decisions. So, Brent, tell us about yourself, your personal professional journey, and why do you think you will be the right choice for this position?
That's a great question. I appreciate that. Like I said, I'm a lifelong San Joaquin County resident. I was born in Tracy, raised in Manteca, raised for the most part in Escalon as well. And I eventually came to Stockton for the University of Pacific and Stockton Unified, and I never left. I met my wife at the University of Pacific. I've been in Stockton Unified for 23 years. Before that, let me rewind a little bit. I was raised by two amazing parents that had a premium on education. My mom was born and came to this country and eventually grew up in Tracy. She went to Tracy Unified, Tracy High School, and education was taken away from her because she spoke Spanish and the way she looked. No fault of her own. She was Spanish was her first language, just like her 9 older brothers. So I was raised by a woman who was upset with the system, if you will, and wanted to treat education as a priority for her children because it was taken away from her. So as I was growing up, education was a premium. You had to go to school, you had to do well, you're going to go to college, those types of conversations, right? So that was my why. I treat every student like it was my mother. That I have to do a good job, otherwise my mom's going to get mad at me. Type of mentality, because that's how I was raised. That diversity drew me to Stockton, where I served and I was principal at Edison High School for 10 years. It was such a celebration at Edison High School because it's one of the most diverse cities in the entire country, and I was fortunate to serve that population. And after 10 years of growth at Edison, we took a school that was very low performing, made it extremely. It was very competitive, the highest performing high school in the district. And once I had success there, they're like, "Hey, Brian, can you take that success and go to 5 other schools?" So I took my successes there and our work ethic, and we had 5 schools grow from there, the lowest performing schools in Stockton Unified. And then from there, like, hey, when the superintendent position up, hey, can you go from 5 schools now to 58? So I'm trying to do as much as I can in a city and a county that I'm so incredibly proud of. That's given so much to me that I want to give back. If you were to look at my brothers, they're doing the same as well. We were raised to do good and to make our city better. My brother was a police chief in Lathrop. He's at the sheriff's department. My younger brother is the vice president at the University of Pacific. We are trying to make as much impact in this county as we can because that's how we were raised. So that's what's driving me to do this. I never thought I would be a politician in my life, but this is an opportunity to really push education forward because that's the benefit. And here's another thing that people don't know about this office. This office has a lot of autonomy. Autonomy to, you know what, let's try this for education because it's innovative and let's go. They have autonomy to push it forward and push it quickly. Because I think the mistake that a lot of adults make is that we have more time. Right? I'll get to it tomorrow. I'll get to it next week. I'll get to it next month. But every day that we wait, we lose a kid. There really isn't no time. We have to act now. There has to be a sense of urgency. And if we don't push education forward, I'll say this 14 times, we lose kids. And if we lose kids, we're not doing our job. And people get stuck in that cycle of poverty. They get stuck in that cycle of I can't. And we have to break that. And education is the breaker. That's what breaks it. And so if we do this job correctly, by the things that we have done, and I say we because I don't lead from an individual standpoint. It's not me. It's the team that I built, the capacity that I lead with, that gets the work done. Right.
Right. No, absolutely, Brian. As you were always in the leadership roles for your 23 years, and during COVID, were involved in helping out the children, purchased around 38,000 students with the laptops or the Chromebooks that were needed during the COVID duration. So in the education sector, you are making the policies, you are involved step by step, working with the children and the kids. So there are many professions, but just curious, so why you chose the education profession, and what is the driving force behind that?
Yeah, when I was growing up, I never thought I would be in education. Honestly, I thought I was going to be a professional athlete. I went I went to college to play soccer. I was going to do that for the rest of my life. My parents hated it because they like could get a real job, but that's what I thought I was going to do. And then I got hurt, I got injured, and I went into coaching. So I coached soccer at Oakdale High School, Delta College, and then eventually got into education because if you want to be a really good coach, you got to be on campus. And I taught education, and I taught at a continuation high school. Was my first education experience as far as a teacher. When I taught there, I fell in love with kids. Just touching lives and being able to get a kid hooked into education and hooked to doing better. Because I started with kids that were discarded, kids that were expelled, pregnant minors, kids that were violent, and my job was to hook them in to school and do some sort of course correction for them. And if you can make a difference in a teenage mind, they're yours for life. It's a powerful thing if you think about it. Changing the life and the career trajectory or path of a kid, that's a powerful thing. And I fell in love with it. I mean, I fell in love with changing lives of kids, and then I fell in love with leadership and changing lives of adults, because I found out relatively quick, you can't push a school forward unless you push your adults forward. If you can get the capacity with your teachers and get them to believe in a mission and a vision and high expectations for every kids, regardless of what they look like, that is powerful for kids, powerful. Because a lot of times, not all the adults have those high expectations. When kids go to school, they don't get the best, right? And so, how do we get the adults? That was really what drove me in education. So now I'm a leadership guy. Part of what I do is not just Stockton Unified. I'm a leadership coach for the for the Sacramento Office of Education. I teach administrative coursework at the San Joaquin County Office of Education. I am a avid staff developer. I train superintendents and principals all over the country to give them the capacity to how to implement things well in educational systems. So I fell in love with the leadership aspect because I know if I can build capacity past me, so instead of one person, now I have 15 calibrated, ready to do the work. That's how you start to build that guiding coalition of adults to do powerful work, right?
Sincerely respect your passion, Brian. So you were involved in the education field, in the leadership roles. Now want to move forward to serve the larger community of San Joaquin County. So it's a great kind of everybody can correlate, all the students, all the parents. So you're not changing the life of one student. It's their family, their friends, their surrounding. It impacts lots of lives. So it's
Absolutely.
grateful for that. Yeah. So taking it back to Raj.
Yeah, no. The next thing I was thinking to ask, it was what made you decide to run for the office, but I think you pretty much covered everything
Right.
in your previous question.
Okay.
Why you chose to become educator to begin with, and obviously running for elected office came later. So it does make sense that how much you have passion, and it just not just happened. It just happened to be you grew up with those values among all your three brothers, and you wanted to give back to the community. And I just don't want to repeat again, but if there's anything missing that you wanted to address to the audience, that hey, these are the three things that are why I am. What's the triggering points that you're running for this office? Please go ahead.
Yeah, it's just its impact. Like I want to be the change that I want for my own kids. My kids go to school in this county. I have a third grader and a sixth grader, and I think I know education. I know what they need to be successful, and I want to give that to everybody. My kids are very fortunate because they have two educators at home. My wife's a third grade teacher, so I want to make sure that everybody has access, and not just talk about access, but provide it. The county has wonderful programming. Wonderful. But who has access to that programming is my question. So that I want to be that force that no matter what the kid looks like, where they grew up, what their zip code is, they have the same access to education, the same opportunities as you, me, and everybody else. That equity and access is the driving force for me because I got it from my mom. I got it when I served Edison High School. And if you think about Edison High School in South Stockton, because people think about, oh my God, South Stockton, crazy place, right? If you think about what we did at that school, we're the only national demonstration site in the county. President Obama in 2014 put our school in his State of the Union address because of the work we did in South Stockton. All right, where people
That's amazing.
which people they typically discard it like, oh, it can't happen there, it's too high crime, too whatever they may say. But we were able to do it there because our adults cared about our kids and they believed in every kid can, and they had high expectations. That can happen anywhere if the adults are willing to do the work. So that's why.
Yeah, so
No, great.
Brian, your parents born and brought up, or they had their education from here. You had the education from here, the San Joaquin County, and now contributing to the same society. So, and in this education field, you are in the leadership roles for more than 23 years. So, what are the major challenges that you see that are in front of the San Joaquin County's school districts, all the school districts, and what positive changes you want to bring?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, just coming out of COVID, the learning loss, 2 years of learning loss, or I call it unfinished learning because it's not a deficit model, right? But that unfinished learning and a lot of the social emotional needs of our kids and our adults. So we're still coming out of COVID where we're still trying to readjust to live instruction, readjust to what education used to be. And I would say used to be because a parent asked me this the other day, like, if you are elected county superintendent, are you going to get us back to normal? And I was like, absolutely not, because normal was never good enough. Our normal lost kids. Our normal didn't have 100% graduation rates across the board, right? So we got to get rid of that notion of how do I get back to what used to be, because we can't go there. It's how do we push forward. Now, when we do push forward, how do we mitigate that learning loss with our kids and provide all the social emotional support that they may need? For example, Stockton Unified hired 35, or maybe it was 36 mental health clinicians to help our kids cope and help our adults cope. So the learning loss is a priority. We have to address that and that unfinished learning. I would say another priority is our teacher acquisition and teacher retention. And that has to, so when I say teacher acquisition, because right now we have a lot of teacher vacancies, people are leaving the profession faster than ever, right? So how do we make that profession attractive once again, right? And once it is attractive, how do we retain them? We have to treat our teachers as professionals. We have to treat them as the people that we want in front of our kids. There's a lot of work to do there because there's teachers that are very frustrated, they're overworked. COVID stressed them out. Teachers teach the best way that they know how the first time. We have to develop leaders that know how to develop teachers into where we want them to go and not just simply discard. They have a very difficult job, and we need to lead it in a way where they are supported, they are taken care of, because a happy teacher equals happy kids. So we have to find a way in this county to attract more teachers and then to retain them. And it's not just simply throwing money at them, because people, well, that's part of it for sure. It's the culture that we put around them that keeps teachers more than anything else. And part of that is the career and technical education that we've been talking about for years in our county, but have only skimmed the surface because not all of our kids go to college, and that's okay.
Right.
It's because it's college and career. They get to choose, because the skills to be successful in college are the same skills to be successful in a career. So we have to strategically develop in this county based on a lot of data and workforce studies. Like, for example, the number one growth area in our industry sector in our county is healthcare, because we're all getting older, right? The number two is agriculture and ag mechanics primarily. Three is logistics. Four is education. We have to make sure that we are building programming around those things, because once our kids leave high school, they can have a shot at a living wage career right out of high school. Internships, job shadows, and not just simply talk about it, but really making career connections with our labor in there. That's why we've gotten a lot of endorsements for all the labor unions in the county, from the electrical unions to the plumbers to the pipe fitters to the construction. That is so important for this county to give our kids a skill, why we have them in our system. So once they leave us, they have options. I can go to college or I can start my career, and not just simply talk about it, but actually do it. That's the powerful thing. It's action, right? Not just simply do what we've done or do what somebody else did, but actually act upon it. And there's a lot that we can I don't know how much time there's a lot that we can dig deeper into that. And then I would also say safety is a priority. We have seen locally, nationally, there's a lot of violence in our county lately. No fault of anybody. There's just a lot of violence. So how do we keep our kids safe at school? How do we keep our kids bully free at school? Because kids that are bullied and not safe at school, they don't have a very difficult time learning.
Right.
So we have to provide safe environments, and that's not just over policing everybody. We have a lot of law enforcement endorsements because they are an active player in education. They have to be, and it's not over policing. It's providing positive relationships with police, so our kids build those positive relationships. So it's not adversarial. It's a resource. Right. So all those things, happy to answer any more of those. And I know I talk a lot and I talk fast, but all those things are priorities in this county and they've been priorities for a long time.
No, this is very valuable information, because coming from the developing countries, or those who always, we never knew that there is a skill-based education that can be imparted to the students who are in a particular segment, who are in a particular area. So that will, I think, curb the brain drain. So that's the biggest problem or the biggest challenge. As you had your education from here, now you are giving back to the society where you grew up.
Correct.
Majority of the kids don't get that opportunity. Wherever they go away, they never come back to the schools or to the areas where they grew up. So back to Rajdeep.
All right, thank you. No, this is exactly like how Gutej said. This is a value information. It's not a lot. It has to be a lot of information when we're talking about education. So I think we can all agree about it because it's impacting just not only a small part of your life, but it's impacting each phase of your life and for generations. Just not only small segment, right? So now, at the end, I wanted to ask. I think this is a difficult question, but we gotta ask that, right? So, what sets you apart from other candidates that in your race?
Okay.
So,
It's a fair question, and I've always answered it because I don't dislike my opponent. I actually like him a lot. But it's the difference between being good and being great. I want to be great. Okay. And it's also the difference between, and someone asked me this the other day, and this is how I answered it. It's not, this is a competition. Anytime you're in an election, it's a competition. For me, it's inspiration though. If I can inspire my opponent to be better and vice versa, that's a win-win for the county. And it's also a difference between a mirror and a window. And that sounds interesting, but I'll tell you why. If you look at a mirror too long, you're just focused on you and what you're doing, the programming at the county, etc. I'm more interested in a window because that means I'm looking out to see what everybody is doing and helping them to do the work. The programming at the county is very important, but if that is what I focus on, I am only getting a small percentage of the county. I am looking out the window because this is how I've always led, to make sure that how can I help you in Manteca? How can I help you in Stockton? And how can I help every single student? Because that's the impact. It's a lofty goal, but that's the difference. And I know that's a loaded question sometimes, and people get into all this hurtful rhetoric and stuff like that, but it's really not. I mean, education, and I would never go there because that's not education at all, right? It's like, how can I do it better so everybody benefits? And I think I can do it better because I have a long history of things that I've done that are clear, things that I have done, not that other people have done, things that I have done with my team at the schools and the positions that I've been in to push this district forward. It's clear. It's clear. But like I tell everybody, I don't want to be good. Good isn't good enough for everybody. I want to be great because if I am great, just like Mr. Atwell said, if this county is humming and proficient and performing, kids will leave us, but then they will come back to us because they want to live here. They want to raise their kids here because that's how successful counties do it. When people come back, they go away to get educated and learn a skill. That's great. But when they come back, everybody wins. Everybody.
Right. I agree. And with your answer, I think it just with such a positive attitude, positive energy, because end of the day, it's a public office that all the candidates are running for to do good for the public, good for the communities, good for the kids. So I think you're setting the right tone for this election, for this campaign. And I believe all our audience that's listening to it, they will make the educational decision on the ballot.
And in the end, I'll request everybody to please do your research. Brian is a leader in education for more than 23 years. If you have any questions, follow up because we discuss lots of things and it does impact our families, our kids, our friends, and everybody should vote. For your questions, follow up, please reach out to us. We'll forward them to Brian, or you can directly reach out to Brian to clarify any of your questions. So, Brian, in the end, what is the right medium to approach you if somebody wants to clarify some of their questions?
Great. Yeah, we have a great website, and it's pretty easy. It's Biederman 2022. So I don't know if they can see my name, but it's BIEDERMANN 2022.com. That'll take you to the website. Once you get to the website, there will be an email address there as well. And like Mr. Atwell says, fire questions, be an informed voter, ask the questions, do the research, let us know. I mean, if there's a question out there, let us know. I mean, we've been on for about a half an hour, but there's a lot of questions. There's a lot of things going on in education, and be the informed voter that you can be, because that's when we win, right? So yeah, please reach out to our team. I will get back to you personally, typically, as soon as I can, for sure.
No, thank you very much, Brian. With that, I want to thank everybody for watching. Please do send us your questions that needs to get answered and your feedback, suggestions for the topics you want to listen. See you all in the next episode. Till then, stay healthy and stay informed. Thank you, Brian.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Thank you.